is to destroy the middle class and steal future elections for generations. Here in Texas, we passed a voter ID law. The left challenged it. And a federal judge a couple of weeks ago said that you cannot have a voter ID. It would be too much of a burden. It would be too much a burden on minorities. Now, to me, that's a racist call. If you're going to tell me that blacks or Mexicans are too incapable or too stupid to be able to get a federal ID, that is a racist comment. But I doubt if there's anybody in Texas that doesn't have a state-issued ID. And if they don't, there's very few. And the few that do exist are probably more than capable of getting one. They're free, and they're all over. Anywhere there's a DMV, and there's not a town around that doesn't have a DMV within a drive's distance. But they want this overturned. Well, good news, last week a federal appeals court stepped in and said, wrong. They didn't decide the ID case based on the actual merits of having an ID and would it disenfranchise or not. They overruled the federal judge on the basis that there's not enough time. We're 2 weeks away from a federal election. There's not enough time to retrain and get the word out to all the different precincts. So for this round anyway, Texas will require a state-issued ID card. And not one election has been held where you needed a federal or state-issued ID card. Not one election has been held where there was a lower amount of minorities voting. In each and every state where a voter ID law has passed, there have been more blacks and more Hispanics and more elderly voting than there were in recent years. So don't buy into this leftist argument that the voter ID law is going to disenfranchise them. The left wants the voter ID law struck down because the left needs the voter fraud, the criminality of anybody going in to vote as often as they want with no record. Folks, stay with us. We've still got more coming up. We'll be right back.
KCAA. Tom O'Halloran has a not-so-common core spelling lesson for the Obama administration. Ready? There is no K in America.
There's kids that can't pray in school, $100 tanks of gas. I can tell you right now, this country ain't supposed to be like that. No, that ain't my America. That ain't this country's roots. You wanna slam, hold on to Sam, but I ain't letting you. Yeah, I'm mad as hell, and you know I still bleed red, white, and blue. They ain't us, and that ain't my America. Oh no, that ain't my America. No, 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 no. That ain't my America.
And welcome back. 14 days out from the new election, from the next election. And again, folks, this is the Patriot Radio Show, Tuesday night edition. Stay tuned tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific time, for the Wednesday night edition. And tune back in Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific time, for Jihad on America, where we take on the Islamists in America and tell you who they are, what they want, and why you should be afraid. Before going to the break, we're talking about voter fraud. When you get a chance, go to AmericaInRuin.com. It is our website dedicated to one issue, voter fraud. There we documented, after the 2012 elections, case after case after case after case of voter fraud in every way, shape, and form. Of voter machines, we had people that were traveling around on buses, going from one precinct to another, voting en masse out of state. But it doesn't matter because they don't need voter ID. Well, it's happening again. Election day isn't even here. And a Republican candidate in Chicago, Jim Moynihan, tried to vote for himself in early elections and was surprised to find that the voting machine registered a vote for his opponent, a Democrat. While using a touchscreen voting machine in Schaumburg, Moynihan voted for several races on the ballot, only to find that whenever he voted for a Republican candidate, the machine registered the vote for a Democrat in the same race. He notified the election judge at his polling place and demonstrated that it continued to cast the vote for the opposing party's candidate. He was eventually allowed to vote for Republican candidates, including his own race. But this is just one person and one machine, and he was paying attention. How many times does it happen? In the race of 2012, there were precincts in Pennsylvania, there were precincts in Chicago, there were precincts in New York, where 100% of the votes cast were for Obama. Now, I'll guarantee you that is mathematically impossible. If you took 10,000 Obama fans and told them to go punch a ballot for Obama, some of them would make mistakes. It's mathematically impossible to get 10,000 people to do anything without somebody screwing up. So how did it happen? And how did it happen that in many precincts, the voter turnout was 140, 180, 200% of what there were registered voters in certain precincts? Voter fraud is the only explanation for any of this. There was a man in court telling a judge, yes, I could write a program that would cause a voting machine to vote one way every time, and you would never know it. The judge asks him, how do you know you could do this? And he stated, because I have done it. Folks, we need to not only keep the House, but take the Senate, and by golly, we need a veto-proof Senate. We need to clean up the voting rolls. If we can get a veto-proof Senate, we can change laws. We need to wipe out every voter registration log in America. For 2016, if you want to vote, you need to present an ID, a fresh voter registration roll for every precinct in every state. We need to start fresh. There are too many cartoon characters on voter rolls, too many dead people. There are too many people that have registered in too many precincts. We need to start it over. And the only way we can start it over is if we can overrule the president, because he will try to block any change that we make. We need to stop this 3 and 4 week early voter process. It's called Election Day for a reason. I can see extending it for 2 or 3 days, but the idea of 3 weeks to vote just begs people to find ways to abuse the system. People come out of caves in Afghanistan and Iraq to vote. They haven't voted in generations, but now they can, and they come in droves. and they show an ID, each and every one of them. They live in freaking caves and they have IDs. So don't tell me that a voter ID is going to disenfranchise blacks or Mexicans. It's crap. They come out of caves and they present their ID. And then they vote. And then they stick their thumb in purple ink to make it impossible for them to vote in another precinct. How can Iraq and Afghanistan possibly have more secure elections than we have here in America? It's insane. And the morons on the left say that voter ID is discriminatory. It's racist. Well, if it's racist to need an ID to vote, then here's some other racist activities. Buying alcohol. You need an ID for that. So that must be racist. I bet there's a lot of black people and Mexicans that are real mad because they can't get any alcohol. Buying cigarettes, same thing. Can you imagine having a nicotine fit and not being able to get a cigarette because the tobacco companies are racists? Renting a car? Seeing a movie? Imagine all the people mad at the racist movie theaters because they want to see an ID to make sure you're old enough to watch an R-rated film, or buy a video game, or renting a pair of shoes at a bowling alley. How racist can you get? You want to see an ID? How about banking? How do people even get their EBT cards without a voter ID? So you want to talk about the poorest of poor, the people on welfare? They can't get an EBT card without a voter ID. Gun ownership. Why is it the left says it's racist to want a voter ID card, but if you want to go to the Democratic National Convention, or if you want to go to the Democratic National Headquarters, you have to present an ID? Let's not forget, people, the Democrat Party is the party of the KKK. Who's racist now? That's right. The Republican Party was started to end slavery. It's the Democrats that have been keeping the minorities, the blacks, the Hispanics, the poor people of all colors, poor for generation after generation. More handouts, more money being given to them to keep them dependent on the Democratic Party so they keep getting their votes. My friends, we've got 2 weeks. Please get involved. Write down 10 names, 10 people that you're going to call between now and Election Day, and make sure that your 10 friends got out to vote. Obama's not in office because the poor people voted for him. He's not in office because the black people voted for him. He's not in office because the Democrats voted for him. He's in office because in 2012, there were 4 million conservatives that voted against him in 2008 and sat on their lazy butts in 2012, did not vote. 4 million of us. 4 million conservatives didn't care enough to go vote. And we've been stuck with this mess for an extra 4 years. Please write down 10 names and call each and every one of them. My friends, that's it for tonight. Good night, America. God bless you and yours. This is Tom O'Halloran. I'm out.